Hey there, this is Nick from Marmalade. Welcome to this Getting Started session for the Marmalade SDK. In this walkthrough, which is going to be pretty short and snappy, I'm going to show you how to set up your free license, open and build your first project, and get it running on the desktop and on a device. The first thing you need to do is go to madewithmarmalade.com and download the SDK by clicking on the big download button here. While it's downloading, sign up for a license if you haven't got one already. I've already signed up, so I'm going to sign in with my demo account here. Once signed in, we just need to get our license key, which will have been assigned. I should start by saying that Marmalade has a free-to-use license, which lets you build apps for major stores, deploy them commercially, including using features like billing and advertising. If I go to the My Account tab here, and licenses, this is where I can see the licenses assigned to my account. I'm using an indie license, but for a first-time sign-up, you'll get a free license here. Just click Select Action, Show Key to see the key for activating the product. I've already installed the SDK, so I'm going to fire up the hub. Marmalade Hub is the central GUI app for the SDK, and it covers things like configuration, project setup, and actually building and deploying the apps themselves. You can use this on a Mac as well, and Marmalade will just be marmalade.app under your applications folder. So you can see for the first time I log in, it's asking me for a license key. I'm going to put my password in again. And then just copy the license key straight from the website here. And click Activate. And that's basically it. Licenses are active for 30 days. You just need to log in within that 30-day period once for it to ping the server and give you another 30 days of usage. There's no background building or sort of server-based infrastructure for Marmalade. All of the projects are actually built locally. You just need to log in periodically to make sure the license stays active. One thing you'll see here is a dependency checker. Marmalade doesn't actually require things like the iPhone and Android SDK. Most of the components are pre-built for you, but you will need some tools in order to do certain things. So, for example, for C++ development, I'm going to want an IDE to actually edit my code in. I've just before doing this installed Visual Studio Express 2010, which is free, and you can see here it's picked up that that's installed and gone green. You can change which platforms are shown throughout the tool here. I'm going to leave that as it is. And you'll see, for example, that there's a list of platforms here for configuration options too. So for Android, for example, as I said, you don't need the SDK, but you will want to make sure you have Java installed for doing signing. For iPhone, you'll want to set up the certificate and keys, which you'll get from the iPhone developer program. I'm going to leave that for now, and today we're just going to do an Android build. So I'll hit Exit, and we'll go and open a project. You'll notice on the right here there is a tab for Marmalade Quick and Web Marmalade. At its core, Marmalade is a C++ SDK for games and apps, but we support quite a bit of middleware. Two of those are Quick and Web, which are basically engines for doing hybrid web development or building 2D games with Lua. We'll leave those for now, but the project setup for those is basically exactly the same as C++. Click C++ here to go to my C++ projects. This is the recent projects list, so we haven't got anything here yet. Things I can do are create a new project, go and import a project I've already been working on, or look at some tutorial and code that ships with the SDK. We'll just make a new project quickly to show how this works. So I'm going to stick in something like my game, for example. There are some templates here, so I can make a 3D graphics project, 2D graphics, an empty project. We support some bits of middleware like Cocos2d-x, for example, so if you want to mix Cocos2d's rendering APIs with all of our integration and toolchain features, then you can do. I'll do a 3D graphics project, I think, and hit Create. After you've created or opened a project, it takes you to the project build screen. This just lets you pick platforms you want to build for, perform builds, and also do configuration. We're not going to do much with our empty project here, but I'll just show you. If I go to Open Project Directory, you can see the project file format is called .mkb, and this is actually a cross-platform project file as well, so I can take this to a Mac and open it with Xcode if I want to. We'll switch back to the Projects tab. I could open a tutorial or an example piece of code here. So on the left are key tutorials and examples that ship with the SDK. These include things like walkthroughs for building full games, UI examples. And if I click the button on the right here, there's actually several hundred examples that ship with the SDK that you can use as well as those key ones. What I'm actually going to do though is import an existing project. I built a little simple game that uses its own engine, and we're going to import that now. So if I click import, I'll go to the desktop. Here is my demo game. So it's got some engine code that I might want to use, and it's also got the actual project in this example folder. It's called Touch My Blocks, so I'll open it up here, and then once it's picked here, just click the Open Project button to go back to our project page. This is basically a little 3D puzzle game using its own engine and doing some simple rendering and touch logic. Marmalade has its own desktop cross-platform simulator, so a tool that is just a regular Windows or a Mac application that can be used to emulate lots of different devices. We recommend people do as much development on the desktop using the simulator before switching to real devices, and you'll see in a minute how it's designed to make that really easy to do. The first thing you do before doing anything with the hub is pick the platform you want to build for. So here you can see all the options for the different devices I've currently got configured, but I'm going to use the simulator to start with. So if I pick x86 here, you'll see the button is red, which just shows I haven't got a build yet. Hit build. There are logs on the right here that show you everything that's going on if you're building from the hub. You'll see I didn't actually have to open up an IDE or touch any toolchain stuff for any platforms to do this. I'm just building a vanilla C++ project for our simulator. Hit run now that it's built, and it'll fire the simulator up. As I said, the simulator is just a regular Windows application. It's got menus that let you configure different things. It shows you a bit of device info initially. It takes a while to start up here because I'm doing a debug build, so it's doing a lot of tracing. And there you can see our game running. Under configuration, I can do things like change the screen size, so I'll just make this some arbitrary value, and you'll see this game has been configured to nicely rescale itself to different screen sizes. It's basically a game where you have a set amount of turns to try and figure out how to turn all these into the same image. I could also do things like, if it was accelerometer based, I could control the accelerometer like this, or I could set a fake location using the location tab. I could simulate suspend and resume to mimic the application being sent to the background or returned to by the user. So that's our desktop simulator. If I actually want to do some coding, I'll just hit this Open in IDE button. You saw earlier I had Visual Studio set up as my IDE, so it just pulls that in automatically, creates a Visual Studio project, and lets you go. On the left here you can see the source code for my game. Here's my project file, and it's got things like files, source, assets to be copied to the device, and also any sub-projects, so my little engine that I've pulled in. Up top here you can see the abstraction layer, so in Marmalade you don't need to code in things like Java or Objective-C or C# if you don't want to. There is an abstraction API in C that exposes those things to your game with all the stuff pre-built for you. So for example, everything from camera and clipboard down to contacts, device stuff, getting keyboard input. Above that there's also the studio projects, which are basically 2D and 3D rendering APIs that you can use on top of Marmalade, and then some open source third-party libraries here. One thing to show is, because this is a Visual Studio project, I can do breakpoint debugging. So if I stick a breakpoint in here, once again I'll run it in the simulator. So I'll pick x86 from the architecture here. I can build all the architectures from the IDE if I want to. Hit run, and it'll build and then give me breakpoint debugging running directly with the Marmalade simulator you saw earlier. So I can step through this like any regular Visual Studio project. Back in the hub, let's make a build for a device. So I'm going to pick Android. Once again, I'm going to hit build to build the project. We built for x86 architecture earlier for my PC, but I'm going to build for ARM for a device now. Once that ARM build is made, all I have to do is basically package it up for whatever device I'm currently using. There's a configuration tab in the middle here, which lets me set a lot of device-specific things. So, for example, you can set icons and splash screens, but by default, you don't have to touch that at all. I'll have a really, really quick look at this. So you've got things like icons. For Android, you can set advanced things like fiddling with the custom manifest, but I'm going to leave that like that. And I'm just going to make a package for a device. So hit package here, and it's just taking the built game binary, the configuration files, and spitting out an APK that I could put straight on the device. And I could copy this over with any kind of file manager, or if I want here, I could switch to package install and run straight on the device like that. So that's all we're going to cover for today. Back on the website, if you want to see further information, just go to the Developer Site tab here, which will open up this page where we've got things like documentation, links to external resources, video tutorials, and access to our online support system. Thank you very much.